Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhams Parivrajakacarya Stotr Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki ISKCON founder Acharya BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की समवेद भक्त वृंद की समवेद भक्त वृंद की समवेद भक्त वृंद की श्री श्री गुरु गौरांग की गौर प्रेमानंदे ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमम् देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। Srimad Bhagvatam, Canto 10, Chapter 69, Text 23 and 24. So we'll recite 24.
Hare Krishna. So let us welcome His Grace Ram Bhadra Priya Prabhu. So Ram Bhadra Priya Prabhu, I've been knowing him from quite some time. So he had been assisting His Holiness Bhakti Rasamrita Swami Maharaj and His Grace Dayaram Prabhu for quite a long time, from many, many years. So, and now, along with those services, he's also very scholarly. He conducts many seminars on Manas Siksha, Shadasandarbhas, and many other Vaishnava Aparad, and so like that. So we are very happy to have him here. He'll be here today and tomorrow. So let us welcome to our ISKCON Newtown by loudly chanting 3 times. Haribol!
Hare Krishna. So today is we are reading from text 23 and 24 of 10th Canto, Chapter 69. So I'll just recite text 23 and the translation. 24 we will recite together. Tatrapyacheshta govindam लालयन्तं सुतान् शिशून् ततोऽन्यस्मिन् गृहे पश्यन् मज्जनाय कृतोद्यमम्. Translation. This time Naraji saw that Lord Krishna was engaged as an affectionate father petting his small children. From there he entered another palace and saw Lord Krishna preparing to take his bath. Purport is very small. That's why we are taking the next verse also. This translation is from Srila Prabhupada's Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Translation means the translation of the verse. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments that in virtually all the palaces Narad visited, Lord Krishna worshipped and honored him. Text 24. Jivantam cha vitanagnin yajantam panchabhi makhe bhojayantam dvijan kvapi bhunjanam avasheshitam jivantam vitanagnim यजन्तं पञ्चभिर्मुखे भोजयन्तं द्विजान् क्वापि भुञ्जानेववशेषतम् जिह्वन्तं च वितानाग्निन् यजन्तं पञ्चभिमुखे भोजयन्तं द्विजान् क्वापि भुञ्जानामवशेषितम् जिह्वन्तं च वितानाग्नीन् यजन्तं पञ्चभिर्मुखे भोजयन्तं द्विजान् क्वापि भुञ्जानामवशेषितम् Mataji. Jivantam, offering oblations. Cha, and Vitanagnin, to the sacrificial fires. Yajantam, worshipping. Panchabhi, five. Makhe, with the obligatory rituals. Bhojayantam, feeding. Dvijan, brahmanas. Kvapi, somewhere. Bhunjanam, eating. Avasheshitam, remnants. Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. We'll all repeat the translation. In one place, the Lord was offering oblations into the sacrificial fires. In another, worshipping through the 5 Mahayagyas. In another, feeding Brahmanas. And in yet another, eating the remnants of food left by the Brahmanas. Purport. The 5 Mahayagyas or great sacrifices are defined as follows. Pato homas cha atihinam sarpaya tarpayam bali. Reciting the Vedas, offering oblations into the sacrificial fire, waiting on guests, making offerings to forefathers, and offering a share of one's food to living entities in general. Srila Prabhupada comments as follows on these sacrifices. In another palace, Krishna was found performing the Pancha Yagya sacrifice, which is compulsory for a householder. This yagya is also known as Panchasuna. Knowingly or unknowingly, everyone, especially the householder, is committing 5 kinds of sinful activities. When we receive water from a water pitcher, we kill many germs that are in it. Similarly, when we use a grinding machine or take foodstuffs, we kill many germs. When sweeping the floor or igniting a fire, we kill many germs. When we walk on the street, we kill many ants and insects. Consciously or unconsciously, in all our different activities, we are killing. Therefore, it is incumbent upon every householder to perform the Panchasuna sacrifice to rid himself to the reactions of such sinful activities. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, in his commentary on this verse, again points out that all the different times of the day were occurring simultaneously in Lord Krishna's palace. Thus, Narad saw fire sacrifice, a morning ritual, and at about the same time, he saw Lord Krishna feeding the Brahmanas and accepting their remnants, a noontime activity. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्ण पादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नम ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणी। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यस्य कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद, श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Seeking the blessings of all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis that I can speak based on my realization and little bit understanding on this verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So I'm seeking all your prayers and blessings. I'm extremely happy to be here in the midst of all the wonderful Vaishnavas here, and especially the wonderful, beautiful deities of Sri Nitai Gauranga here. It's the first time I'm coming to this center. I've been regularly visiting our 3C Albert Road. So this is Canto 10 and Chapter 69, and especially one of the important topics where Narad Muni is seeing the Aishwarya, the opulence of Krishna, how he's doing his wonderful activities in the Dwarka Leela, especially of expanding himself unlimitedly, and all the different activities he is observing while he's visiting each of the palaces. So in this context, I'll speak this whole class in three parts. So the first discussion what we are going to have is how we as Gaudiya Vaishnavas, our attraction is to Vraja Krishna, Radha Krishna of Vrindavan. So how do we see these pastimes of the Dwarka Leela or the Mathura Leela? And secondly, we will discuss how our Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas see it. From their perspective, we will see the Dwarka Leela, and especially how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us through Sanatan Goswami in the Sanatan Shiksha of the Bhagavad Tattva, of who is Bhagavan. Sambandh has to be established with Bhagavan. So how he establishes that for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And thirdly, based on these first two discussions, it will become evident that why it is important to understand this opulence of Krishna for us. And in the purport, some very relevant points are there of the Pancha Mahayagyas and the Pancha Suna, and how we should practically see them and understand them. That is the third part, what we will be discussing. So, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us the essence of Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy in his verse. Aradhya Bhagavan Vrajatanayas Tadhama Vrindavanam Ramya Kachitupasana Vrajavadu Vargena Ya Kalpita Srimad Bhagvatam Pramanamamalam Prema Pumarto Mahan Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Matamidam Tatratna Paraha. So our worshipable Lord is Aradhya Bhagavan Vrajatanayas. It is Shyam Sundar Krishna, the son of Nand Maharaj. And our worshipable land is the holy land of Vrindavan. Tadhama Vrindavan. And Raghunath Das Goswami makes it very, very clear. Vraje Radha Krishna. You should worship Vraj Radha Krishna and not Mathura Krishna or Dwarka Krishna. It is Vraja Radha Krishna. And how we should do Aradhana? Tadhama Vrindavanam Ramya Kachita Upasana. So we should do Upasana as the Vraj Gopis performed. Ramya Kachit Upasana Vrajavadu Vadu. And where is the evidence? Srimad Bhagvatam Pramanamamalam. So our focus right from the beginning, first canto, is to enter into Vrindavan pastimes and especially the Krishna's pastimes of Vrindavan, and especially in all the rasas which Krishna exhibits in the Vrindavan pastimes in the first 40 chapters of the Srimad Bhagavatam, where Krishna's birth pastimes are there, there is more Vatsalya pastimes and then the Sakya pastimes, and the highest is the Madhurya pastime, the conjugal pastimes. So that is our worshipable Lord, and that is the highest rasa. That target has been set by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So then why do we study the Mathura Leela and the Dwarka Leela, which is major portion of the 10th canto? Almost 50 chapters are dedicated. In the 90 chapters of the Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto, there is Mathura and Dwarka Leela in 50 chapters, and 40 chapters is Vrindavan Leela. So why do we study? How do we understand this? And here, especially in this chapter, the Aishwarya Gyan about the Lord is being narrated. So how do we understand this? So to this, let us go to the Gita. Right in the middle 6 chapters, in the first verse, Krishna begins explaining that what is the goal. Our prayojan he sets up. Maya sakta manapartha yogam yunjan madashaya asamshayam samagramyam mam tata gyasasi tachshunu. Just here. Maya sakta manapartha. Your mind should become attached to me. So this is asakti, the level of asakti. That means you have attained the prayojan. But where it all begins with tat shunu. And in the next verse, Jnanam teham sa vijnanam idam vakshamya asheshata. Yad gyatva neha moyanej. What is it? Yad gyatva neha moyanej. Gyatavam avashishyate. You'll know everything in detail or in principle. So here, Jnanam teham sa vijnanam. Srila Prabhupada translates Gyan as phenomenal knowledge and Vigyan as numinous knowledge. But Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentions Gyanam as Aishwarya Gyan and Vigyan as Madhurya Gyan. Now there is a difference between Madhurya Ras and Madhurya Gyan. Aishwarya Gyan means to know the opulence of the Lord. What are the powers of the Lord? And Madhurya means to know the sweetness of the Lord. How the Lord is so sweet. That is Madhurya Gyan. That he's so intimate with his devotees. How he lovingly reciprocates with his devotees. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentions that in this middle 6 chapters, what is narrated is the Aishwarya and the Madhurya Gyan. And Lord Krishna starts giving that Aishwarya Gyan. Bhumi rapo analo vayu kham manor buddhi revacha ahankariti amme bhinna prakriti ashtada. So this 24 elements, the eightfold elements which formed the 24 elements, is to see the swarup of the Lord as this universe. Idam hi vishvam bhagavan ivetaro. And especially how the Lord reciprocates with his devotees. And that is the Madhurya Gyan. So in the middle 6 chapters, there is the combination of Aishwarya and Madhurya Gyan given. So in the 7th chapter, there is the Aishwarya Gyan given. In the 8th chapter, there is the Aishwarya Gyan given. In the 9th chapter, there is also Aishwarya Gyan given. How the Lord creates this universes. Maya Dakshina Prakriti. All those verses 9.4 to 9.10. That's Aishwarya Gyan given. And there is also Madhurya Gyan. How Krishna reciprocates with his devotees. Ye bhajante tu mam bhaktya mayi tesha chapyaham. Samoham sarva bhuteshu. that is his equal. But with his devotees, he reciprocates. And pure devotional is brought out in 9.26. Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. In the 10th chapter, again, Krishna gives the Aishwarya, the opulences, the Vibhuti Yoga. And especially in the Chaturshloki Bhagavatam, the Madhurya Gyan comes up with the Aishwarya Gyan. Aham Sarvasya Prabhu is his Aishwarya. But then how does he reciprocate with his devotees? Tesham Satat Yuktanam Bhajatam Priti Purgakam. So like that, a combination of Aishwarya and Madhurya is given in the entire middle 6 chapters. In the 11th chapter, his Aishwarya is exhibited in the form of the Virat Purush. And in the 12th chapter, which is better? Meditating on the impersonal Brahman or meditating on me? And then how one can attain me, what could devotional qualities attract even Krishna. So for devotees, the more one understands the Aishwarya Gyan, and this is the Lord with so much Aishwarya, but the way the Lord, reciprocates with his devotees, that, Madhurya, that attracts the devotees. So the more one knows the Aishwarya Gyan, the more he will be attracted to the sweetness of Krishna. That this is Krishna who possesses this kind of opulence, but yet he is so personal and intimate in his exchanges. Just like two friends who have been studying in the school together, who had very intimate friendship in their school days. But after 20-30 years, when both of them meet, the other friend who was coming from a very poor family, but this friend, who was his childhood friend, was coming from a very opulent family. And when they both meet, this friend tells, now I'm a owner of a multinational company. I have factories all over the world. I'm a billionaire, trillionaire. So the more the friend hears, wow, this is my friend, childhood friend, who is now so, having so much opulence. But what will attract that other friend is his simplicity and his pure dealings with him. That is the Madhurya feature. So that is going to be really very deep in the heart, which will attract him. Although he has all these opulences, but yet he is so simple and intimate in his dealings. So similarly, we need to understand the opulences of Krishna. The Aishwarya Gyan is required. But with the Aishwarya, as in the middle 6 chapters, the Madhurya feature of the Lord is what we need to be attracted. And especially to the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan. In Vrindavan. And here, the opulence of Krishna, the Aishwarya Gyan of Krishna is given in the Dwarka and the Mathura Leelas. And that's why we need to also study them, so that ultimately we can, be attracted to the Madhurya feature of the Lord. So, as I was mentioning, that the second part, what I'm going to discuss is how our Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas see, especially the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Because our prayojan and goal is very clear, set up. That is, we have to be attracted to what? Vraja Krishna, the Vrindavan pastimes. And on the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, all our acharyas have commented. Sanatan Goswami has written a commentary, Jiva Goswami has written a commentary, Kavi Karanpur has written a commentary. Kavi Karanpur, when he started commenting on the Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto, and after commenting up till the Vrindavan pastimes, when Krishna was about to leave to Mathura, he did not take it further. So he just commented only on the Vrindavan pastimes. Whereas Jiva Goswami, especially in his Gopal Champu, has commented on all the pastimes of the 10th canto, the Dwarka Leela and the Mathura Leela also. But he has commented from a very different angle. And there are two narrators of the Vrindavan Leela, Madhukanta and Snigdhakanta. These are actually Nalakuver and Manigriv, because that was their prayer, that Vani Gunanu Kirtana. We want to always sing your glories. So Madhukanta and Snigdhakanta are sitting in Gokul in Nand Bhavan, and Krishna, Yashoda and all the gopis, gopas, they are all sitting and they are hearing the pastimes of Krishna right from the birth. And they are relishing these pastimes. But when they are hearing the Mathura and the Dwarka pastimes, although they are about Aishwarya Gyan, about Krishna, but we know that the Vrajvasis don't accept Krishna as Bhagavan. And even in the material world, materialists don't accept Krishna as Bhagavan. But there is a lot of difference. There's a lot of difference between the two. So, although Krishna exhibits his opulences in his Vrindavan Leela, but the Vrajvasis' devotion, the spontaneous devotion which the Vrajvasis possess, is so deep that although he exhibits his opulences, but their sweetness is so deep that it covers his Aishwarya Gyan. Just like in Bengal, many carry milk in a can and they put grass, right, so that the milk doesn't spoil. And when you boil the milk, sometimes this grass is there and it comes up. It comes up. So similarly, the Aishwarya, opulence of the Lord as Krishna as Bhagavan, manifest even in Vrindavan to his spontaneous devotees who are Ragatmika Bhaktas. But then it goes down. It doesn't remain. Because they are so much attracted to Krishna in the Vatsalya as son, or in the Sakya as friend, or in the Madhurya as lover, that it doesn't remain. The straw which has come up when the milk is boiled, it goes down. But in his pastimes in Mathura or in Dwarka, when he exhibits his Aishwarya, the devotees who are in that Aishwarya Bhav, they always have that knowledge that Krishna is Bhagavan. Whereas the Vrajvasis don't have this knowledge because of their Madhurya. So similarly, when the Vrajvasis are hearing this narration in the Gopal Champu, they are seeing even the Dwarka and the Mathura pastimes from a Vrindavan-centric point of view. They are saying from the Vrindavan-centric point of view. So that is the beauty how Jiva Goswami has brought out in his commentary. So similarly in the Sanatan Shiksha, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching Sanatan Goswami, Kiyami, that was his question, who am I and why I am suffering the threefold miseries? And the Lord starts answering. These were the two questions Sanatan Goswami asked. And another two questions was, what is sadhana and what is sadhya? So Kiyami, Jivera Sarup hoy, Krishnera Nityadas. And because now you are bound in Maya, you are suffering the threefold miseries. And how to come out? By performing sadhana. And what is the sadhya? Sadhya is sambandh hoy, Bhagavan sambandh. And bhakti hoy, abhideya. Prema, prayojan. Veda, ei teen vastu kahe. So you have to establish sambandh with whom? Bhagavan. You have to establish sambandh with Bhagavan. Now, an entire 2 chapters of the Sanatan Shiksha, chapter 20 and 21, is devoted to who is this Bhagavan. And the whole analysis is done. Bhagavan means Swayam Bhagavan, Tad Ekatma and Avesh. And Swayam Bhagavan is Krishna, who is Gopavesh. And then Sanatan Goswami is taught that there are other features of the Lord. Tad Ekatma. Tad Ekatma refers to the other features of the Lord which is manifested in Vaikuntha. And then there are the Purusha avatars, the Leela avatars, the Manvantara avatars, the Guna avatars, the Shaktavesh avatars. Elaborate discussion goes on in the entire chapter 20. And then ultimately, after discussing all this, then in chapter 21, he discusses the Aishwarya feature of the Lord, and then ultimately the Madhurya feature. You have to be attracted to the Madhurya feature of Krishna, who possesses these 4 unique qualities, which even Narayan doesn't possess. And the beauty of Krishna, all that he discusses, so that ultimately our prayojan is to be attracted to whom? Vraja Krishna. So that is established in the Sanatan Shiksha. And this Swayam Bhagavan, who is Gopvesh, he exhibits himself or manifests himself into Swayam Prakash. And this Swayam Prakash has 2 divisions, Vaibhav Prakash and Prabhav Prakash. And it is related to this topic because what is Prabhav Prakash? The 2 examples are given is how Krishna, expand himself into unlimited, forms during the Ras Leela. And another example is given that how Krishna expanded himself into 16,108 to be with all his 16,108 gopis. So this Swayam means his own, Prakash means manifestation. So within this there is this 2 examples. And the Vaibhav Prakash is the other features of the Lord. This is not Swayam Gop Krishna, Gopvesh Krishna, but the features differ. Like the Vasudeva feature, which was manifested to Vasudeva and Devaki when Krishna was born. Or the Balram feature. He's Krishna, but he's in a different feature, in a different mood. So within these expansions of Krishna himself expanding, the Swayam Bhagavan expanding into Swayam Prakash, but within that there is what? Prabhav Prakash. I think I'm not clear whether it is Vaibhav Prakash or Prabhav Prakash, but either of the 2. But in Dwarka he expands, that is more of his Aishwarya feature. But in the Ras Leela, it is his Madhurya feature because he's Vraja Krishna there. He's Vraja Krishna. So here Narad Muni is seeing the pastime of Krishna expanding himself into unlimited forms in each of the palaces, and all his activities, what he is doing, Narad Muni is seeing, and these verses are describing those activities. Now there is a difference between when Krishna himself expands and there are jivas who can expand. And in the Sanatana Shiksha it is mentioned that even Saubhari Muni expanded himself into how many forms? 50, to be with all his 50 wives. But there is a difference. When Saubhari Muni expanded into all the 50 forms, all the 50 forms were doing the same activity. They cannot do different activities. Just like, sometimes there are some showrooms where there are a lot of mirrors and you raise your hand here and all the mirror images also raise their hands. So Saubhari Muni was able to expand like that, but all his activities were the same. Whereas Narad Muni is seeing here what? That he is seeing that Krishna is doing different activities in each of the palaces. He's doing different activities in each of the palaces. This is the opulence of Krishna. So even when Krishna married simultaneously 16,000 queens, 16,108, the 8 principal queens' pastimes are quite elaborately discussed, right? But when he married these 16,100 queens, it's not that every day he was performing one marriage. Then how many days it will take for the marriages to get over? Simultaneously, the marriages were happening simultaneously all the palaces. And simultaneously there was Vasudev, there was Devaki, all their expansions were there in each of the marriages attending Krishna's marriage. This is the opulence of Krishna. So here Narad Muni is seeing that opulence exhibited by Krishna. And in the 23rd verse, it is mentioned how Narad saw that Krishna was affectionately dealing with his children, and he was taking to, in another palace, he saw Krishna was about to take his bath. And the purport, it is very relevant that Vishwanath Chakra Thakur is commenting that Lord Krishna respected and honored Narad Muni whenever he saw him in each of the palaces. And in the next verse, which is today's verse, which we are going to discuss, he is seeing Krishna performing the Panch Maha Yagyas or the Panchashuna. Now it is, Prabhupada is very clear in his comments that all these 5 kinds of activities which we do, we kill many living entities. And it is pertinent that to counteract this, we need to do what? The Pancha Maha Yagyas. It is pertinent that we do it. Now in the Vedic times, the culture was there that before you feed, of course after offering the bhoga and we get the mercy in the form of prasad, it was customary that, especially the grahasthas would never honor prasad for themselves. They had to first honor the guest. Otherwise it is considered a sin. It is considered as a sin. So why it is relevant and important is because, especially it is mentioned for grahasthas, but for all, Prabhupada in the purport is mentioning that it is meant for everyone, and especially for the grahasthas. Because usually the sannyasis are on the transcendental platform. Vidya Vinay Sampanne Brahmani Gavihastini Suni Cheva Sapakecha Pandita Samadarshana. They are able to see the Paramatma in the heart of every living being by philosophical insight or by realization, because they themselves are self-realized. So for them there is no question of sin because they are doing the propagation work of preaching. But those who are not on this platform, how will they come to this level of Pandita Samadarshana? Only by doing the Pancha Mahayagyas. Only by doing the Pancha Mahayagyas. How will you realize that Krishna in the form of Paramatma is there in every living being? By performing these activities. And here you have a Goshala. I've been staying in Vrindavan for some time, and there's one devotee who told me that if you want to stay in the Dham and get the mercy of the Dham Vasis, especially the other living beings, like the ants or the monkeys or the cows, if you're going in a particular place during the Parikrama every day, at that particular place, you start feeding the monkeys or the cows. Every day you're going at that particular time and you feed them. Every day do this activity. And they know the moment you come at that particular time, they are waiting for you. And they know that, this person will feed us. Then they will give you mercy. Then by their mercy, you'll be able to stay in the Dham. So similarly, if you are conscious that I will not take prasad until I feed other living entities. Even in your home, there are ants, and you start feeding the ants, you will see that at that particular time they will come. That they know that they will get prasad now. So this is the only way by which we can come to this level of what? Pandita Samadarshana, that the Lord in the form of Paramatma is there in everyone's heart. Is there in everyone's heart. Now in the Kapil Shiksha, this is brought out by Kapil Dev in his discussion with Devahuti. I'll just end with this small discussion because that is relevant to this verse. When Devahuti asked question that I am being tormented by my senses. What is the means by which I can get liberated? Kapil Dev in chapter 25 discusses Sadhya Bhakti. He speaks about Adhyatma Yoga and discusses Sadhya Bhakti, where one is experiencing the beauty of the Lord. He's seeing the lotus feet of the Lord, all the ornaments, and he's meditating. He has attained Sadhya, or Bhava Bhakti, you can say. And after discussing Sadhya Bhakti in chapter 25, Kapil Dev speaks about how one can attain liberation by Jnana Yoga. He discusses the 24 elements and liberation by the process of Jnana Yoga in 25 and 26 and 27. And chapter 28, he discusses about how we can attain liberation by Ashtanga Yoga. After hearing all the three yoga processes, Devotee says, I feel Bhakti Yoga is practical for me. Kindly now explain in detail Bhakti Yoga. And then Kapil Dev first speaks about Mishra Bhakti and then Nirguna Bhakti. And Bhakti begins with Sadhana Bhakti. Kriti Sadhyat, Kriti Sadhya Bhave Sadhya. Sa Sadhana Bida. So Sadhana Bhakti, he discusses the limbs of Sadhana Bhakti. And then Sadhana Bhakti should lead to what? Sadhya Bhakti. But Kapil Dev mentions that usually by doing Sadhana Bhakti, you don't attain Sadhya Bhakti. What is the reason? There Kapil Dev goes into a lot detail to give the reasons why Sadhana Bhakti doesn't transform into Sadhya Bhakti. Because that is the definition of Sadhana Bhakti. So we are all practicing Sadhana Bhakti, but why don't we attain Sadhya Bhakti? So there are three reasons which are given, and especially is that we disrespect other living beings. We commit offenses to other living beings. Avaman. And Kapil Dev is very heavy like fire there. And he says that one who disrespects other living beings, although he is doing sacrificial fire, his pouring of the ghee is like pouring into the ashes. Very heavy. So, why do we disrespect other living beings? Because we don't realize ourselves that the Lord is in our heart. If we realize that the Lord is in our heart, then definitely we will respect every living being. And because we are on not at that level of realization, that is why we need to practice this. Sakale sammana korite shakti dehonata yatha yatha. Tabe to gaibo harinama niraparada hobe. That only when I am able to respect all living beings based on their level of consciousness, then I will be able to chant the holy names without offenses. And only then what will happen? Sadhana Bhakti will turn into Sadhya Bhakti. So there Kapil Dev goes into the gradation of living beings. So you might wonder why Kapil Dev is speaking. What is the connection there? He speaks about the gradation of living beings right from the trees to the ants to the moving living beings, and like that he goes up to the human beings. Within the human beings he goes to the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, and within the Brahmanas there is the Brahmagya. And then he goes to higher and ultimately the pure devotee. So based on their level of consciousness, one has to respect every living being. So this is a very important point what Srila Prabhupada is also making, because Srila Prabhupada's comment itself is given that we are always committing what? Sin. And that is why we need to serve all living beings by all these kind of Panch Maha Yagyas. And this has to be practically done, because now we are not in the Varnashram Dharma where the Vedic tradition is followed. And only when you follow this, you will be able to realize that the Paramatma is there in the heart of every living being. At least you will have some realization, although you might not be self-realized. And then you will be able to respect every living beings. And only then Sadhana Bhakti will transform into Sadhya Bhakti. So in this brief discussion in today's class, the first thing, the theme what we discussed was that how do we see these Dwarka Leela and the Vrindavan Leela which are more about the Aishwarya of the Lord, how do we see? Because our goal is to be attracted to the Madhurya feature of the Lord of Raja Krishna. And how our Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas see that and how they present it. And from the Bhagavad Gita, we discussed how it is important that we understand the combination of Aishwarya and Madhurya, and ultimately Madhurya will prevail. Madhurya should prevail for us. And in the purport, we saw, based on the Sanatana Shiksha, how Krishna is exhibiting his opulences in Dwarka, and Narad Muni is witnessing all the different activities of Krishna. And in this purport, it is mentioned about the Pancha Mahayagyas and why it is relevant and important, so that we are free from sinful reactions and we can respect every living being only when we realize that the Lord in the form of Paramatma is there in our heart. And until we are not at that level, we need to perform these. But those who are on the transcendental level of consciousness, the sannyasis, they are there. They will never disrespect. So that's why they are able to, be at that level of consciousness, and they have attained sadhya. But for sadhakas, to attain sadhya, we need to do this until we are at that level of consciousness where we can spontaneously, respect every living being based on their level of consciousness. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Any questions, clarifications, comments, any corrections? Yes, Prabhuji.
I have two questions, Prabhuji. But first question is, you mentioned the
Can
last
you
point.
keep the mic close to your mouth?
Haribol? Okay.
Yeah.
You mentioned last point that we have to do this Panchashuna till the time we go to the realized state of Paramatma. If you could tell us any instance of Prabhupada, apart from book, in practical way, if he mentioned it or if he did it or implemented in some temple, Panchashuna Yajna, if you could speak one or two instances, this will also give more reference for that. Because it's mentioned like that, but I would like to know what Prabhupada practically did it for doing this in ISKCON temples.
Yes. Prabhuji's question is that this Panch Mahayagya, Prabhupada has mentioned in the purport very clearly, but can you tell us some practical way which Prabhupada implemented and how we can also implement that? Yes, that's the question. Now, Prabhupada was very, very practical and pragmatic about things, because we are now in an age where Varnashram Dharma is not there. Right? Varnashram Dharma, nobody is practicing Varnashram Dharma. Right? So, Prabhupada did not speak, you go back to that culture and exhibit and practice it. But he gave very, very practical instructions. Now, one of the disciples of Prabhupada got married. And he wanted some special instructions from Prabhupada. So he went to Prabhupada. What is my duty? And you know what Prabhupada said? He just told one thing, that in your house, before you take prasad, you go out, call out, is there any guest? Please come and honor prasad. And forget Indians. Indians can understand this. Western audience will never understand this. What is this culture? So he could not figure out what is Prabhupada telling. And then he asked once again, and Prabhupada repeated the same thing. And then he asked once again, and Prabhupada repeated the same instruction once again. Another thing I would like to tell you practically, that Prabhupada, when he started preaching the Krishna conscious movement in the Western world, especially for his grahasthas, in order to conceive a child, what did Prabhupada say? Chant how many rounds? 50 rounds, right? Or 64 rounds again. 50 rounds, right? Now, Prabhupada, as an emergency, told that instruction. And you can find that in the letters or instructions to the disciples. But if you read the Bhagavatam purports, What is Prabhupada giving instructions in the Bhagavatam purports? He is telling us to implement the Gardhadan samskars. And you see 1, 2, 2. Yasvanubhavam akilashutisaram ekam adhyatma deepam matitirshitam tamondam samsarinam karunaya purana guhyam tam vyasanumupayami guru muninam. This verse, if you read Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary, it's so rasik. You know, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is explaining the rasa which is, in the, what is happening when Sukdev Goswami left. When Sukdev Goswami left home, even the trees were feeling separation from Sukdev. That is the level of a pure devotee that, he's affectionate to all living beings. And when, Vyas was running behind him, ha putra, there is an echo coming. And actually the trees were preaching to Vyas. Don't be in illusion that your father, he is your son. So like that, Vishwanath Chakravarti is giving commentary. And you see Prabhupada's commentary. Prabhupada is very practical in his commentary. He is telling about Sukdev was beyond all these purificatory processes. He directly took sannyas without going through any purificatory processes. And Prabhupada is speaking about varnashram there. What is the purpose of a varnashram? To make a crude living being into a pure devotee of the Lord. That is the process of varnashram. Just like, you extract a raw mineral and then process to the factory so that you get a end product. So Prabhupada in that purport is speaking about these things. So we need to find out from the instructions of Prabhupada how in today's practical situation we can implement. Like in one morning walk in London, Prabhupada wanted to smell the leaf of a small plant. And he told his disciple to pick it up. And he was about to uproot the whole thing. He said, just pick up one, leaf. So he was conscious that, we should not harm any living beings. So like that, we need to know what practically we should do in implementing it. So although we might not do this, like before you honor prasad, we invite other devotees in the ashram also to come and honor with them. So that, we have to raise our consciousness like that so that we can practically implement in a Krishna conscious way. Is it satisfactory?
One more small question.
We can take up. Is it okay? Because time is up. Is it okay? Yeah. Okay.
What happened? In the first part of your talk, you mentioned that we have to go through Aishwarya and then finally to Madhurya. I just want some analysis on that. That what happens if one is under narration of Aishwarya and enter into Madhurya? What happened? One didn't take care of Aishwarya again, directly entered into Madhurya. Like pastimes or other way. One who doesn't take care of any Aishwarya, one who taken more Aishwarya than less Madhurya. What will happen to them? If you could share.
Okay. So if one doesn't have the Aishwarya Gyan and directly enters into the Madhurya, then it will create havoc in his spiritual life. It will lead to Sahajism. That's why our goal is to reach to the 10th canto. To reach to the substance, we have to go through the categories, right? That's why from the first canto, the 9 cantos are building up to go to enter into the 10th canto. So that's why Prabhupada insisted that one should read the first and the second cantos. And if you read in the second canto, one of the purports, Prabhupada says that the first and the second canto are compared to the lotus feet of the Lord. And as long as one is not free from lust, one should not go beyond the second canto, he says there. So we have to become steadily situated at the lotus feet of the Lord. And then slowly rise up. It's like seeing the having the darshan, because the Padma Puran compares the Bhagavatam to the entire body of the Lord. And the 10th canto is his beautiful face and smile. Face is the 10th canto and the smile is the, the Ras Leela Panchadhyaya. So our goal is to go to the Ras Leela Panchadhyaya, in fact. And Prabhupada says in the introduction, if you read, one should read canto by canto and chapter by chapter of the Bhagavatam until the 9th canto. And by that time, you should become a self-realized soul. Then he can enter into the 10th canto, he says. So when I went through the first 12 cantos, I did not feel any relishment of Krishna Rasa in the 10th canto. And then when I read back again the introduction, no, Prabhupada is saying you have to be a self-realized soul. And the 9th canto is preparing one to the 10th canto. And that's why there are 3 sobering pastimes of how powerful is lust. One is the pastime of Saubari Muni. Another is the pastime of Yayati. Another is Pururava. So similarly, the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is speaking about Karma Yoga. Yes? How while doing action, how powerful it is. So we need to study the first 6 chapters also nicely. And especially when you have the more Aishwarya Gyan you have to know the powers of the Lord, then the more, you will understand the sweetness of the Lord, how he reciprocates. So the Aishwarya Gyan will lead to what? Madhurya. It will lead to Madhurya. So by practicing the Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, there will be a natural spontaneous attraction towards Krishna. And that comes with the purification of the heart. Because our path is path of the Rag. Because we have to enter into Raganuga Sadhana in order to attain Vraja Krishna. But even as sadhakas, even at the practicing stage where we have not taken to Shuddha Bhakti also, we have attraction to what? Radha and Krishna. We have attraction to Gaur Nitai. We have attraction to the, Angas of Bhakti. So there is an element of Rag, even in our beginning stages of practice. But only when it matures with solid philosophical knowledge of Tattva. Tattva will lead to slowly Rasa. Without the foundation of Tattva, if you try to enter, then it will create havoc in our spiritual life. Is it okay? Both are taken care. Okay. Any other clarifications?
Thank you, Prabhuji, for class. Wonderful class. So basically, the Panchshona Yajna, how can we practically apply? Because as brahmacharis, as practicing devotees, so what I understood is, I just want to check whether I understood you correct, that we should be very careful in dealing with all living entities. We should not, many times we step on them and we can be careful of. And we respect every living entity, try to see them as part and parcel of Krishna and see that they have super soul, Krishna is sitting in their heart. But that we forget, as you said, we forget again and again. So what practical steps we can take? We can feed cows. What all things other things we should do?
So basically, we need to understand that who is a Vaishnava. There is a statement in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Uttamahan hoya nira abhiman sakala jiva saman. It says one who is a Uttam Adhikari, he is free of pride. Hoya nira abhiman. And sakala jiva saman. He offers respect to every living being. And it is natural and spontaneous because he is having that realization. Now for sadhakas who are not at that level, we need to take the Sambandha Gyan. to understand that every living being is at a different level of consciousness. And how do we respect every living? Sakala Sammana Korite Shakati. It requires great spiritual potency to what? To know each person who has what level and accordingly to respect them. That is the potency which is required for us. And only when we do that, then what we can do? We can chant the holy names without offenses. So even in the Upadeshamrit, Rupa Goswami is bringing out this point. He's saying what? Kintu adarat anudhinam. So we should respect that the Lord is not different from the holy name. And just like, a great personality has come to the temple, suppose the chief minister comes here, you are attentive, you are conscious, your consciousness doesn't go to any other trivial things of to-do things, what is there in your agenda. You are fully focused there. So similarly, we need to do in our practices by showing that we are, respecting Krishna in his holy name, by being very attentive while hearing the holy name, by sitting in a proper posture and trying to hear the holy name. Because only a Madhyamadhikari who is on the Namabhas level can realize that the holy name is non-different from the holy name. And only he is able to do Nam Seva in the form of preaching. Others are not at that level, so we need to take in some steps by which we can be conscious about it so that we can implement in our chanting. And with chanting, the Vaishnava dealings also will happen so that we can, come to this platform of respecting all living beings. Is it clear? Okay, we'll stop here. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagvatam ki jai. Anant Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.